Hello everyone, and welcome to this evening's webinar, When Disaster Strikes, Protecting Your Family Child Care Business. This webinar is co-sponsored by Child Care Aware of America and the National Association for Family Child Care. My name is Holly Nett, and I'm the Community Resilience Manager on the Emergency Preparedness Team at Child Care Aware of America. Thank you for your interest in this important topic. We had over 600 individuals register for tonight's webinar, so we're very excited about that. With all of the recent natural disasters that our country has encountered this past year, this is a timely and a very important topic. We're excited to have the expertise of Tom Copeland tonight. It's been a pleasure to work with him in preparing this webinar for all of you. NAFCC, the National Association for Family Child Care, will email a certificate of attendance to everyone who's in attendance during this evening's live webinar. The certificate will be emailed to you within 1 week, and it will be sent to the email address that you're registered with. A certificate of attendance will not be sent to those who just access the recorded webinar. You're all in listen-only mode, so the phones are muted, but we'd love to hear from all of you. We encourage you to type any questions that you have in the question box. You can also raise your hand, and we'll try to get to your questions. My team members at Child Care Aware of America will be monitoring the questions that come in, and we will address as many questions as we can at the end of today's presentation. Due to the large volume of participants, if we are unable to get to all of your questions, we'll do our best to follow up with you through an email response. I'd like to provide a few tips to you related to your webinar screen. On the right side of your screen, you should see a navigation panel. You can expand or collapse this panel by clicking on the orange arrow near the top. You will see that we've included 3 handouts for this session, and I've indicated those by the blue circled areas on this screenshot. The yellow arrow is pointing to the area in which you can type a question. You may need to click on the little arrow in the gray section next to this to expand the area to allow yourself to type in the question. And lastly, you can raise your hand to ask a question, and that area is indicated by the purple box. This evening's webinar is the second session in a lineup of 5 webinars scheduled this fall on child care disaster response and recovery topics. Additional topics that are still scheduled include helping children and families after a disaster, which will feature 2 partners of ours, Sesame Street in Your Communities and Camp NOAA. Both of these organizations provide resources to help children understand how to deal with the difficult emotions that they may experience because of a disaster. In November, Dr. David Schoenfeld, one of the nation's leading experts in helping children deal with loss and with grief, will offer tips for helping children respond to the aftermath of disasters, including grief and loss. And lastly, in December, we will shift our focus to resources that may be available through organizations such as FEMA and the Small Business Association for financial and resource assistance. We hope you can join us for future webinars. The Emergency Preparedness Team at Child Care Aware of America has a large number of tools and resources related to preparedness, response, and recovery on our webpage. And that website address is www.childcareprepare.org. We invite you to visit this page to sign up for the Child Care Emergency Preparedness Listserv to receive updates and notifications on new resources that become available for the child care industry. You may also be interested in tracking some of our child care recovery efforts with Hurricanes Harvey, Irma, and Maria. These hurricanes are unfortunate reminders that damages and losses from natural disasters can have a significant impact on your child care business. Insurance is a key component of a comprehensive plan to help you prepare for emergencies. For example, in the 39 counties that Hurricane Harvey impacted in Texas, just under 300 child care programs still remain closed. So on behalf of the National Association for Family Child Care and the Emergency Preparedness Team at Child Care Aware of America, thank you for joining us this evening. I'd now like to turn this webinar over to Tom Copeland. Thank you, Tom, for offering your time and expertise to all of us. I'm just going to take 1 minute to pause and we'll pass it over to him. Thank you.
Okay, am I on? I hope I'm connected here. And people can see the first slide, when disaster strikes, protecting your family child care business. Welcome, everyone. I'm glad you were able to take the time for us to discuss this important issue. I am a licensed attorney. All right, let's try this again. I'm a licensed attorney coming to you from my home office in St. Paul, Minnesota. I've been working in the child care field since 1981, focusing on the business side, trying to help people be more successful as a business. I've written a bunch of books on the business side of family child care, and I help people try to answer their questions. So if you have questions about what I'm talking about this evening, or questions about other aspects of the business side of child care, I'm happy to try to answer them. Here's my phone number. There is my email address. I don't charge anything for answering questions, so I'm happy to do that. I do that a lot. I also have a website, tomcopelandblog.com, where I've posted hundreds of articles on all aspects of the business side of childcare. I've written several articles on there about disasters, coping with disasters and casualty losses. You also have as handouts 2 articles I've written about disasters and recovering from disasters that we will be talking about as part of this webinar. I'm on Facebook. I'll be your friend if you be my friend. And whenever I post something on my website, it'll appear on Facebook. And you can also ask me questions via Facebook. We are going to be focusing on how to claim expenses associated with damage to property suffered because of a natural disaster. We're going to look at insurance to protect yourself in the future, as well as looking for insurance to help you recover if you have suffered some damage or loss. And then lastly, we're going to look to plan ahead to reduce potential financial disruptions that may occur with future emergencies. I'm not your lawyer. I'm not providing you with legal, tax, or other professional assistance as part of this webinar. So let's jump into this. There are risks associated with natural disasters, of course. Children could get injured. Your family could get injured. Property damage to your home, to your furniture, to your appliances, to daycare equipment, to your car. You could lose income. All those providers in Texas who are closed, providers in Florida and Puerto Rico who are closed. You're losing income. And there could be lawsuits associated with disasters as well. So the risks are real. We can manage the risks, however. We can never eliminate the risks. Obviously, things happen, but we can manage them. And so we're going to focus on 3 areas: deducting disaster expenses, purchasing adequate insurance, and planning ahead for future emergencies. And as we go along, please feel free to ask questions. And I will be looking at the question box and trying to answer them as I'm going along. Depending on how many questions we get and how much time we have, at the end, we'll ask people to raise their hand if they want to speak directly to me and make a comment or question that way. Also, depending on how many questions we get, we may post them. I would post them on my website. Childcare Aware could post them so that we can see the questions and answers that way. So please feel free to start posting any questions you might have. So let's jump into this. Deducting disaster expenses. Now, this is the most technical part of what I want to say. And so before I jump in, I just want to say, when you suffer loss, damage or loss of property, your home or anything in your home, you want to make sure you understand the tax rules in terms of how you might be able to deduct certain amounts of these expenses. And you may need help with this, with a tax preparer, to help you sort through this. But I want to highlight the bigger picture so you understand what's possible so that you don't lose out on possible deductions. A casualty loss, which is IRS language for things you might be able to deduct, is defined as damage, destruction, or loss due to a natural disaster. But it also includes loss because of vandalism, theft, or a car accident. For purposes of this webinar, we're going to focus on natural disasters. The costs associated with this loss might be property damage to your home or its contents, medical treatment to you or the children in your care, cleanup, minor repairs, temporary housing, a rental car, replacing spoiled food, boarding up your home, or sandbagging your property. So there's a whole lot of things that would fall under the heading of a casualty loss. And if you follow the rules, the IRS rules, you can deduct some or all of these expenses. First thing is you want to file an insurance claim, because if you don't, you can't deduct a casualty loss. And first question is, what does adequate insurance look like? That's our second section, and we're going to go into that in great detail. So you want to file an insurance claim. You for sure want to call up your insurance agent and say, hey, I've suffered this loss. How is my insurance going to cover me? Or isn't going to cover me? You want to inquire. And if you are entitled to make a claim and the amount is significant, more than your deductible, you want to make a claim. If the insurance pays your full claim, if they're paying for everything, then there's no tax deduction. If you have a deductible, which I assume you do, or if you're paying part or all of the cost, then you may be able to deduct some of these losses, damages, as business deductions that reduce your taxes. Now, if you had to shut down your business temporarily and you're losing income, that lost income is not a deduction. This is something that a lot of people misunderstand. You don't collect the money from parents that you're counting on. That's not a deduction. That means you're only reporting as income the money you actually get. And if your income is lower because you weren't getting as much income, you're going to pay less in taxes. That's probably the only good thing to say about it. But you can't deduct what you didn't get. Question, are terrible rainstorms and snowstorms considered disaster? Say my roof caves in or leaks, not everyone is affected in the same way. That's a casualty loss. That's damage as a result. A natural disaster would be a rainstorm or a snowstorm. Yes, it doesn't have to be a Category 5 hurricane to be considered a disaster. Disaster is probably a strong word, but sure, rain damage, snow damage, earthquake damage, all considered casualty losses. Absolutely. All right. So here's the trickiest part, this next couple slides. Deducting a casualty loss is a business expense. First, if you have something that's completely destroyed that you've been using in your business and you have no insurance to cover it, if it has already been fully deducted or depreciated, there's no additional business loss that you can claim. For example, you bought a $100 toy. In the previous year or 2 years or 3 years ago, you deducted it all. You were entitled to claim this as a deduction. And now it's destroyed. You don't have a business loss because you've already deducted it. You can't deduct it twice. Another example, you have a $1,000 sofa that's in your living room, but you're using also for your business. And your time and space percent, or in other words, the business use of that sofa, let's say is 40%. That means the business deduction that you were entitled to claim was $400. And if you've already deducted the $400 or fully depreciated out, then again, there's no business loss. Now, what if something is completely destroyed and you have some insurance coverage? Well, you need to take that insurance into account. So that same $100 toy, completely destroyed, but the insurance that you get is covering $25 of that. Now you have a $25 business gain because you've already deducted it all, and now you're being given $25 for it. So now that's a gain. That's actually income. You'd have to report as income. $1,000 sofa, the insurance covers $500 of that. It was 40% used in your business. That means $200 of that was business. The insurance, $200 of that insurance was towards the business portion of it. And again, if you completely deducted that sofa, the $200, the business portion of that insurance, is now also a business gain. Now, getting $200 or $25, even though you have to report that as income, you still want that money. It's like, still give me the money, because I'll pay some taxes, but I'll still have money left over. So you're still ahead of the game. You're going to report any business gain on an IRS Form 4797. If your home was damaged or destroyed in a federally declared disaster area, and that's many, many counties now in 2 states and Puerto Rico, then the insurance proceeds that you get are not income. So you're getting $500. Let's see more generally. You have a whole lot of damage to your home and you get $10,000 through insurance. That's not income when you're a federally declared disaster area. Next. What if the item has not been fully deducted or depreciated? So far, we've been talking about stuff that was fully deducted. Now, what if it hasn't been fully deducted? And first, this situation, no insurance. Then the business loss is the purchase price minus the depreciation that you have claimed on it, if you claim depreciation. You had a $3,000 swing set used completely in your business. You've been using it for 2 years and have been depreciating it for 2 years. In those 2 years, you claimed $388 of depreciation deduction. The difference is $2,612. And you didn't get insurance, and so that's a business loss that you can deduct. You have to take into account the depreciation to reduce that loss. If it has not been fully deducted or depreciated and you do have some insurance, then you take that into account. $3,000 swing set, $2,000 of insurance coverage on the swing set. You have the same $2,612 business loss, taking into account the depreciation, minus the insurance payment. Now you have a $612 loss. This, I assume, is, you're not familiar with this. It gets tricky. Like, oh man, all this stuff. The point is that you need to realize that when your business property, anything you're using in your business, has been damaged or destroyed, there's the potential for a business deduction. And the reason why that's significant is that a business deduction can significantly reduce your taxes. In other words, you have a $100 item that's a business loss. That's going to reduce your taxes by $30 to $40 depending on the tax bracket you're in. So a business loss that you're able to claim is going to be worthwhile. Now you might think, man, you know, my basement is flooded and I have 150,000 children's books and toys and all this little stuff, all these little things. Well, it's still worth taking the time to track this stuff down and see how much these things add up in terms of a business loss. The loss you suffer from damage to your home or your property can be both a business loss and a personal loss. There's a little bit slightly different rules for a personal loss. It's not as advantageous to you tax-wise, but still there could be it could be helping you reduce some income tax. So property that you're only using personally and is destroyed could create a personal loss. Property used only for your business could create a business loss. Property used for your business and for your family, which represents most of the stuff around your home, furniture, appliances, rugs, couches, tables, chairs, everything, then some of that could be considered a business loss and some of it a personal loss. And there's a series of forms you have to go through. It starts on Form 4684, and it goes to Form 4797, and then it gets onto the 1040 form. And you look at that and you say, oh my gosh, this is complicated. Well, yeah, it's complicated, but I would just want to point out that there is a potential significant tax benefit if you follow the rules. And this is something a tax preparer should be handling if you're not familiar with it. I've written a tax book that goes through these forms, but using a tax preparer can make some sense. The casualty loss for your business can't create a loss on your business tax return. It can't turn a profit from your business into a loss. But if you have, tremendous losses of business stuff, and you didn't make a lot of money this year, all those losses can't wipe out all of that income, can't create a loss for your business, but you can carry over some of those business deductions, some of those casualty losses to the next year. All right, that was the most complicated part. So again, the summary here is be aware that things that you are using for your business might be creating a business loss if they're damaged or destroyed, which will give you a bigger tax benefit if you treat them as a business loss and follow these rules than if you simply said, oh, this is just my personal stuff, and therefore it's a personal loss. All right? Okay, let's see. There's another question here. What if I'm covered personally as well as business coverage? Well, that's what we want to get into now about insurance, because we need to be aware of the fact that in some cases providers aren't covered through insurance when they might think they are. So we got to talk about this. The primary insurance policies you want to have to protect yourself from any future natural disaster or calamity is homeowners insurance, business property insurance, business liability insurance, and vehicle insurance. So let's talk about each one of those. Homeowners insurance. Homeowners insurance is covering three basic things. Your house, to repair or replace your house. And man, we've seen pictures over the last several weeks of all these homes being so totally destroyed. Your homeowners insurance also covers the property, the stuff in your home that you own, that you brought into the home. Furniture, clothing, your personal items, swing sets, business items, everything. And limited personal liability. So if a neighbor is over to your house and falls off the deck and breaks their arm, your homeowner's insurance is going to provide some coverage. That's what a typical homeowner's policy is about. However, be aware there are a zillion different kinds of policies out there, and they vary by state. They can vary from year to year. Many homeowners policies restrict or deny coverage completely for family child care providers. Some policies will say no business covered. Other policies will say family child care providers only covered up to, say, 4 children. So you got to watch out. If you have those kinds of restrictions in your policy, your house could burn down and you get absolutely nothing for it because the policy said they didn't cover you. And you may well not be aware of this. What else? More typically, pretty commonly, homeowners insurance policies will not cover the contents of your home that are used for your business above about $2,000. Now, what is used in your business in your home? Well, you could make the case it's virtually everything. Your furniture, your appliances, the bed that children sleep on, and so on. We're not just talking about toys and swing sets. We had a provider in Minnesota who a tornado destroyed her home and everything in it. And she got $2,000 for all her content because she had the kind of policy that had a limit on that. My wife quit her job once. We converted a bedroom into an office. She wanted to be a consultant. We bought a computer, we bought a desk, we bought a printer, and I called up my homeowner's insurance agent. I said, is this stuff that we just bought for her business covered? And he said, up to $2,000 it is. Beyond that, it's not. Also, a homeowner's policy will not cover you for any damages, medical costs, lawsuits related to your business. So if a daycare child falls off a deck, your homeowner's is not going to cover you. A parent slips and falls on your steps, your homeowner's won't cover you. So providers need to be aware that homeowners insurance is personal insurance, not child care insurance. and your home and your contents may no longer cover you. They covered you when you weren't doing child care. Once you started doing child care, they may not now cover you. That's the big message I want to make sure people understand. All right. Well, that's the bad news. Okay, how can we make sure we're covered? There's no substitute for talking to your insurance agent. And you want to get in writing that you're covered. So you would call up your agent and say, I'm a child care provider. I'm caring for 4, 5, 6, 10 kids. Is my house covered? If my house is destroyed, will my policy cover me as a family child care provider? And what about the contents? I'm not talking about swing sets. I'm talking about my refrigerator and my freezer. Is that covered, because I'm using it in my business, is that covered if they're destroyed? And if your agent says yes, then you say, terrific, put it in writing. Put it in writing. I've heard from a number of providers who, after hearing me say this, have gone back and talked to their agent, and the agent says you're covered, and then the provider says put it in writing, and then the agent calls them back and says, I just talked to the insurance company and you're not covered. We haven't thought about this before. You don't want to find out you're not covered when you need to make a claim. And so you need to get it in writing now. If they won't put it in writing, you should assume you're not covered. If they say you're not covered for the contents, they may say, we can sell you a business property insurance policy to cover the contents of your home that are business and personal. The cost of business property insurance is usually not that much, probably less than $100 or so to cover you. If you're a renter, you need renter's insurance that covers your business property. Same idea. Does this policy cover my stuff? Because I'm using it in my business. And I've seen situations where there have been fires or tornadoes, whatever, and the insurance agent is out there, reviewing the claim and looking around, and is asking. And then say, oh, I see a sign that says daycare. Oh, here's an example. We had a Minnesota hail damage. The contractor's up there fixing the roof, and they notice a sign in the provider's window that says daycare. They tell the insurance company calls up the provider and says, we're not fixing your roof because our policy doesn't cover you. See? So you want to find out, you got to find out ahead of time. Next, business liability insurance. In my opinion, you shouldn't operate without having adequate business liability insurance. What does this cover? This covers the risks associated with the business. Children are injured. Oh, I can't spell injured. Parents might sue you for all kinds of things. I've talked to insurance agents where they've described the kind of range of claims made by parents against child care providers and amounts of money damages that insurance companies have paid out. Dog bites a child, a cat scratches the child tips over boiling water on the stove on top of another child. A parent accuses the provider's husband of sexual abuse of their child. Just on and on of all the kinds of things that can happen. Now, telling parents that you don't have insurance doesn't protect you later. Some states like Minnesota will say, if you don't have business liability insurance, you need to tell the parents that you don't have it, and they need to sign a statement saying they're aware that you don't have it. Well, one provider called me up and said, I was outside with the child was standing next to me, the child fell down and broke her arm. There was absolutely nothing I could have done about it. Things happen. I had gotten the parent to sign a statement saying I didn't have insurance. But the parent now is saying, well, wait a minute, I don't want to pay for this broken arm. My insurance might go up. This is not good. I expect you to pay for it because you were there, you were responsible supervising my child. And the provider was upset thinking, well, wait a minute, she knew I didn't have insurance. Well, that doesn't make any difference if the parent later decides to sue you. Because if a child is injured in your program and a parent sues you for medical costs associated with that injury, it's highly likely that they're going to win because the child's not at fault. It's a child. You're the responsible adult. Maybe it's not negligence. Maybe there's not going to be any damages, but the parent certainly has a claim for the medical costs at least. I've gotten several calls in the last couple of weeks from providers who are deciding to turn in their license and only care for a few kids that they're allowed to care for under their state rules. They're going to be exempt from licensing. And so they're asking me about insurance. For the most part, business liability insurance companies will not cover you unless you are licensed or certified or whatever the highest level of regulation is in your state. Let's use the language of licensing. If you're not licensed, even though you don't have to be licensed, you're highly unlikely to be able to get business liability insurance. Your best bet, if you've exhausted all options, is to contact your state insurance commissioner's office to see if they can refer you to a company who offers insurance on what's called a secondary market that will insure people under these kind of unusual circumstances when you can't get it anywhere else. Question, is there recommended minimum amount of liability coverage? Yes, there is. Got one more slide to go before we get there. What should a business liability insurance policy cover? Professional liability, failure to supervise, because any child's injuries could probably be attributed to a failure to supervise. So a general liability policy, that's not as good as professional liability. Legal defense in excess of policy limits. What does that mean? If you're sued and you have insurance, then you simply contact your insurance agent. They will hire a lawyer to defend you. Now you got a lawyer on your side, so you let the lawyer deal with all this. The lawyer settles with the parent or they go to court. Eventually it's over. And the lawyer submits its bills to the insurance company. And lawyers charge a lot, so that could be a lot of money. You want the insurance company to pay the lawyer out of their pocket and not have it reduce the amount of coverage you have in your policy. So if you've got $1 million policy and the legal fees are $100,000, you still want to have $1 million available to pay off the parent if necessary. You don't want it reduced to $900,000. Child abuse, you want to make sure your policy covers any accusation against other family members besides you. Accidental medical. The most common injury in family child care is a child falling down. Well, you want that policy to cover that. Ideally, you want the policy to cover that immediately, rather than your company saying to the parent, well, go find out if your insurance will pay for it first, and if your insurance won't, then we'll take it up. You would rather have your company jump right in and say, tell the parent to send us your bill and we'll pay for it. All right? So next, you want coverage for accidents away from your home. Believe it or not, there are a number of policies, particularly insurance policies that are simply riders onto an existing homeowner's policy, that say if you're with the kids at the park or you're walking down the street and the child was injured, our policy doesn't cover you. Well, that's no good. And some liability policies also provide some coverage for damage to property. So that's something to look at as well in a disaster. Maybe your homeowners is not going to come through, but your business liability insurance may well have some coverage for a certain amount of property damage, and that's worth looking for. Please define what an unregulated provider is. An unregulated provider would be somebody who does not meet the regulation standards in your state. So in Minnesota, if you're caring for children from more than one unrelated family, if they're not your relatives, you must be licensed. So if you're caring for just one family, you're not required to be licensed. You're unlicensed. You're exempt from licensing. If you're caring for 2 or more families and they're not related and you don't have a license, you're illegal. So I use the word unregulated because some states don't use the word licensing. There's certification and registration. There's all kinds of different words. Is there one above one that you recommend? Laura, I'm not sure what your question is there. Rephrase that. I was told that not all insurance companies will cover allegations of child abuse. Is that correct? Yeah, insurance companies are different. So that's why on the screen I'm saying, what should the policy cover? Liability policies, unlike homeowners insurance policies, can vary a lot. Homeowners policies tend to look the same, cover the basic things, but liability is different. The more personalized your insurance is for your situation, the better. So yes, it's true, some policies just do not cover child abuse allegations at all, but you want to get covered for that. So that's something you want to be asking about. If a child care provider is an exempt provider, can they get professional liability insurance? Yeah, that's what I was trying to say earlier, and the answer is, for the most part, no. If you're exempt from licensing, insurance companies don't want to insure you. Insurance companies are saying, we want you to meet the highest level of licensing or regulation standards in your state, whatever that is. If you don't meet that, if you're not licensed when there is licensing, even though you're exempt, we're not going to insure you because we consider you a greater risk if you don't have that license. All right. In terms of insurance, do you recommend one? Well, let's go to the next slide. A couple more slides. What's probably not covered? Water, swimming pools, wading pools, ponds. A lot of insurance companies will say, hey, if you got a swimming pool, we're not covering you for that. So if somebody drowns in the pool, you're out of luck. Trampolines, total disaster. You should never have a trampoline. Insurance companies won't cover for that. Pets, companies will say, in some cases, no dogs or certain kinds of dogs are not covered. Criminal legal defense. You're accused of child abuse. They're not going to pay for a lawyer to defend you in court on a criminal case. Some policies, I should have put this on a slide, some policies will provide coverage if you're accused of violating a licensing rule. You're over-enrolled, you were accused of doing something, and so you're appealing. You want to fight what licensing has said you did. And some policies will provide some legal defense against a licensing infraction, and that's something good to look for. All right, so here's the question slide people wanted me to get to. Well, how much insurance should you get? As much as you can afford. Some insurance is better than none. All insurance policies will have two coverages, per occurrence coverage and aggregate coverage. What does that mean? Per occurrence coverage is how much will your policy cover you for each incident. In January, a child falls off a swing set. That's one occurrence. In March, another child falls off a swing set. That's another occurrence. For each occurrence, in this example, you want, in my opinion, $1 million per occurrence. That's ideal. Aggregate means what's the total amount of coverage for the life of the policy, which is 1 year. So if you had 2 or 3 or 4 occurrences, in the end, the insurance company is not going to pay out more than, and I'm suggesting you get coverage for $2 to $3 million of aggregate coverage. Now, you can get insurance as little as maybe $300,000, $200,000 per occurrence, and maybe up to maybe $600,000 at the lowest end for aggregate. Well, what's the difference in price? Between $300,000 aggregate and $2 million aggregate, all right, the cost is probably just another $100 bucks. So to get, $2 million essentially of coverage for $100 bucks is cheap. So when you're looking at the cost of insurance, all right, people are mostly looking at, okay, what's the cheapest coverage? But then see what the difference is in getting more insurance. Because I think you want to get more insurance if you can. But if you can't, you can't. The questions of where to get the insurance, actually I realize is coming down the road. When we finish talking about insurance, I will be more specific about how to find an insurance company. Somebody says, right now we're all supposed to have insurance in our new state regulation. Okay. Okay, everybody's asking for recommendations. Okay, we'll get there. We'll get there. Last kind of insurance, vehicle insurance. Transporting children, if you're doing that, is a major, major financial risk. We have a situation in Minnesota a number of years ago. A provider gets into a van with 4 daycare kids. She's driving down the freeway. The van catches fire. 2 of the children die. She did not have adequate vehicle insurance. She's no longer doing childcare, and she has hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of claims hanging over her head because her insurance, her car insurance, wasn't adequate. It would not cover her in the situation because she didn't have the right kind of insurance. What are you going to do? You've got to talk to your insurance agent and say, this is how I'm using my car for my business. I'm transporting children every day, once a week, once a month, once a year, never. I'm also using my vehicle for other purposes for business. I'm going to the bank once a week. I'm going to the grocery store twice a week. I'm going to trainings. I'm going to Target. I'm going to Walmart. Wherever you're going that has something to do with your business, you want to tell that person. And then you want to find out, am I covered? This is how I'm using my car. Am I covered in all of these situations? If the insurance company believes that you're using your vehicle only occasionally for your business, you may not need any more insurance that you have right now. But if they feel like you're using your vehicle regularly for your business, then they may say to you either you're going to need commercial insurance, commercial vehicle insurance, or we're canceling you because we don't cover providers. Now, are you using your vehicle occasionally or regularly? Don't base it on what I think it might mean. Don't base it on what you think it might mean. You need to find out what they think it means, and you need to get it in writing from them. So if they say, yes, you're covered, you know, it's occasional use, yeah, you're covered, no problem. You say, wonderful, I want it in writing. If it's not in writing, you should assume that you're not covered. And because of this, some providers no longer transport children because that's the biggest thing that will push you into the category of needing commercial insurance or getting canceled. Will some homeowners insurance drop you if they find out you were running a child care? Yes, it's possible. I'm going to come back to that point. You never want to get into a vehicle with children without being sure in writing that you're covered. What other vehicle insurance issues? Never charge a parent to transport children, included in the regular fee. If you're charging, you know, $5, $1 a trip kind of thing, you could be accused of having a vehicle for hire and you need a commercial driver's license and pay other fees associated with that. So no, just include it in your regular fee. If a parent is transporting children in her vehicle, her insurance will cover it. So you want everybody's parents' permission for this to happen, and you want to make sure that parent has insurance. If you have an employee and they're transporting children, you want to get what's called hired and non-owned liability coverage. Talk to your liability insurance agent about getting covered in case there's an accident and the parents sue you because you're the employer. Now, nobody likes buying insurance, that's for sure. And there are a lot of excuses for why people don't buy insurance. I don't have much money. There's nothing to sue me for. Well, just like the provider with the van, she doesn't have any money, but she's got hundreds of thousands of dollars. If she ever gets another job, they could garnish her wages. If she gets an inheritance, they could take that. If she sold prop, they could put a lien on her house. So this could hang over your head for a long time. I've never had an accident. I've never had an experience a natural disaster. That's not a good excuse. I can't be sued for more than my insurance covers, so why not buy the bare minimum? I've only got $300,000, $600,000 of insurance, and if they sue me for $1 million, I don't have it. Yeah, but the same answer. They could still have that judgment hanging over your head. My parents signed a liability waiver. That's not going to do you any good. Parents promise never to sue me no matter what. That's in your contract. You sign it, they sign it. It's worthless. It's worthless. Judges will not enforce such waivers. Why do we need to tell our car insurance agent about food shopping, getting to trainings? Because you don't want the situation where you're on the way to the grocery store to buy food for the kids. There's an accident, all right? And so you're making a claim because your vehicle was totaled. And you don't want the insurance company to say, well, why were you on the road? And you say, well, I was going to the grocery store. Why were you going to the grocery store? Get some food for the daycare kid. Oh, that's business use of your vehicle. We don't cover that. You don't want them to say that. You don't want to be arguing with them at the time that you should be covered. And they're going to say, no, you're not. You're fighting about that, and now you have a total car, and you're stressed out. This is not the time to find out whether or not you're covered. You just want to tell your insurance agent everything about how you're using your car so they make sure if there is an accident, you will have it in writing that you are covered. Okay? Okay, next. How do we find insurance? Okay, everybody's been asking about this. First, I have an insurance directory on my website, DonCopelandBlog.com. At the top, it'll say Tax Repair Insurance Directory. Go there, then I'll click Insurance Directory. I also have a handout there that says 10 questions to ask before you purchase business liability insurance. It's a checklist of things to look for that you can compare your policy with different policies to see whether or not you're adequately covered. So read that as well. So there's insurance companies listed alphabetically. It'll say, you know, what kind of insurance they offer, homeowners, liability, car. It'll say what states they do business in. So go through there, see if you can find somebody there. If you are struggling to find somebody in your state, and the people on, you don't have to have anybody on my list or one person on my list, and that doesn't work out, ask them, do you know somebody else? You know another company that might provide coverage. What else? Talk to an independent insurance agent. Google independent insurance agent and the name of your town. That's a person who doesn't work for any particular company and finds insurance policies from a variety of companies, so they'll go out there looking and calling up other companies on your behalf to trying to find a policy for you. What else? If you know other providers have insurance, ask them, do you have insurance? You told them that you're doing childcare and you have insurance? Great. Who is that person? If you're using a tax per person, that person may know insurance agent. Your homeowner's agent may not provide liability insurance, but they may know somebody else who does. So try all those things. If you're still come up empty, then call up your state insurance commissioner's office. They're the ones that approve insurance companies to come into the state to offer insurance. And so say to them, I've called everybody I can think of. Do you know of other companies that will offer insurance in my situation? Or can I get insurance on what's called a secondary market? And that may be another way to go. Do I recommend any company over another? No, I don't. I've given you that checklist to look, and so you need to compare yourself. Policies change, so I'm really hesitant to say, well, this company does well here, and because it also can vary by state, so I'm not prepared to say that. The companies on my list are not companies I recommend, because I'm simply putting up there companies that I'm aware of that do provide insurance for family child care providers. So I would encourage you to shop around, talk to more than one, compare their policies. When you're working with an insurance agent, you need to realize they're your friend. You want to explain to them all your circumstances. Be open with them. If you're lying to your insurance agent, that's just going to hurt you later if you're trying to make a claim. Report all accidents and incidents to your insurance agent. Ask that person, what do you want to know about? Do you want to know about a bruised knee? I assume you want to know about if a child went to the hospital. Tell me what you want to know so that I can keep you fully informed. The more they are informed, the more they can advocate on your behalf. If you have major life changes, marriage, divorce, birth, new home, disaster, obviously disaster, you want to be in communication with that agent. Ask questions. If you don't understand insurance, sometimes insurance agents talk in language that's hard to understand. Keep asking. Keep asking. Question, I'm from Hawaii. You know of auto insurance companies who provide insurance in Hawaii? Look on my website. Look on my website. I don't recall off the top of my head. In New York, the state association offers insurance for members. If not listed, can you add it? Yes. And since I'm going to be getting a copy of all these questions afterwards, and you've given me the website, I will check on that, and if they're not on there, I will certainly add them. Making a claim. If your insurance company may turn down your claim or offer you something that you don't think is fair. So here's my personal example that happened this summer. We had a contractor working on our house, working on a bathroom. They noticed a leak in the roof, and they went on the roof and they said, you had hail damage. And we go, oh, we didn't even know that. And apparently this hail damage was like a year ago. So we call up the insurance company and say, hey, we got hail damage. We want to make a claim. They come out, they look at the roof, say, no, that's not hail damage. That's just normal wear and tear. So I can imagine most people just saying, oh, well, too bad. Okay, we tried. But no, our contractor said, well, wait a minute. No, there's a process. We want to appeal this. Okay. They bring on another guy. The second guy says, nope, that's not hail damage. We're not going to pay anything. That's normal wear and tear. So I'm thinking most people at that point would give up. And our contractor says, no, we've been through this before. No, now there's another process, a more formal process of appeal. You want to go to the next step. So the third person came out and looked at our roof and said, you have hail damage. So we got, in the end, about $20,000 for a new roof. So what I want to say is, don't give up immediately if you believe the claim, the amount they're willing to pay under your insurance policy is not adequate. Don't just accept the first offer if you don't think it's adequate. Don't sign anything unless you are convinced that that's a reasonable amount. And you may want to think about it. You know, take it. Don't sign anything immediately. Pause, think about it. Talk to somebody else about it. If you feel like it's not fair, go through the appeal process. Say, what do I do if I don't accept this? Tell me what I need to do to appeal it. And my contractor said, most people don't appeal. The vast majority of people who do appeal get something more. I mean, they win something. And if necessary, you may want to contact a lawyer. Deducting insurance costs. You can deduct the time-space percentage of homeowners and renters insurance. You can deduct 100% of the business property or business liability insurance. Vehicle insurance, you can only partly deduct it if you're using the actual expenses method to claim your vehicle costs. If you're using the standard mileage method, you cannot deduct any vehicle insurance. All right, last section. Plan ahead to reduce future financial disruption. We want to try to establish an emergency fund. You want to try to have enough money in an emergency fund to cover all insurance deductibles. So if your car insurance has a $500 deductible, you want to have saved somewhere $500. If your homeowner's insurance has a $1,000 deductible, you want another $1,000 in that emergency fund to cover that. So when there is a disaster, and the insurance is paying something, but you've got to come up with a deductible that you'll have it. You'll have it right then. What else? Having operating expenses for your family for at least 3 months. If you were closed for 3 months or couldn't earn, better way to say it is, you couldn't earn income for 3 months, how are you going to live? Ideally, you want to try to put money aside in an emergency fund to cover 3 months of basic living expenses. Where are you going to come up with this money? Some providers set aside a portion or all of their food program check until they have an emergency fund that's adequate. Or parent registration fees, or late pickup fees, or any you're giving me a headache fee, any kind of fees that you might be collecting from parents, put it aside into an emergency fund. What my wife and I have been doing for the last number of years is our tax refunds. We put all our tax refunds into our emergency fund. Other sources of money as well. Somebody says, I got insurance from my list. The checklist was helpful. Glad to hear. Here's another contact person for New York insurance. Great. What about umbrella insurance? What does that mean? Umbrella insurance is a policy that you can get that will increase the coverage limits of a homeowner's and a car insurance policy. In other words, if your car insurance covers you for, I don't know what, let's say $500,000, you can get an umbrella, and your homeowner's insurance covers you for, I don't know what, another $500,000. You can get $1 million umbrella policy that will raise the coverage on your homeowners now to $1.5 million, and your car insurance to $1.5 million. So it's a cheap way of raising the coverage amounts. This is something to think about if you have children of your own, particularly kids who drive, to raise your limits to cover that, and it's relatively inexpensive. You want to check, however, some umbrella policies will only increase the personal limits of homeowners and car insurance. Some umbrella policies will increase the business limits. So you want to, ideally you want to increase your business limits. So that's something to check out. All right. So you're putting aside some money in an emergency fund. put it in a checking or savings account or a money market fund. You don't want to risk taking a risk with this money. You want to set it aside. You want to identify it. This is our emergency fund, so you don't touch it and spend it on something else. Do not put money for an emergency fund into the stock market or bonds or CD, because either it could lose value or you might have to pay a penalty for taking it out sooner. So don't mess around with that. Keep it in a very safe place, checking, savings, money market account. Small amounts add up. You got $50 a month, you'll have $600 by the end of the year, and $3,000 in 5 years. Next, you want to conduct a household inventory. Insurance won't pay for items that you can't identify that were destroyed. You've got 450 children's books in the basement that are flooded, but there's such a mess, you can't prove that you had 450 books. So you want to take pictures or video of everything in your home. I just did this last month. I just went around, I opened up all the closets, I opened up all the drawers, I just pictures. I didn't do a video. You just want to see, so in my case, here's a bookcase, so I can see the bookcase, see how many books are on it. Then I took the pictures, I put them on a flash drive, and I put it in a safety deposit box away from your house. There are tax advantages. You can depreciate all the items that you owned before your business began that you use in your business. Many providers have not done this. And there's a form, IRS Form 3115, that allows you to claim all previously unclaimed depreciation. This is not the time to go into that detail, but you go on my website and search Form 3115, or just search depreciation, you'll see this article. Keep records in a safe place, obviously. You need to save your business records for the IRS for at least 3 years after filing your taxes. Some states, like Wisconsin, require you to save them for 4 years. You want to put your business record in plastic containers or a file-resistant file cabinet. You can scan receipts and records onto your computer. And if you scan them, you don't have to save the paper. But then you better make sure your computer is safe. Again, you want to download these records onto a flash drive, stick them in a safety deposit box. Put your personal records, in particular birth certificates, passports, valuables, in a safe deposit box. You may want to identify a backup caregiver. If you are injured or your home is damaged and you can't do child care in your home, and you've lined up a backup caregiver to say, parents, I'm sorry, I can't provide the care here. I've lined up Susie over here who can. That can be very beneficial to your business to keep those parents connected with you. Check with your business liability insurance agent to see if you are covered if care is provided by a backup caregiver in your home because you're injured or in another home. You want your liability insurance, that's a change, that's a major change. Check in with your agent, hey, am I still covered? You need, depending on the state you're in, you may need workers' compensation insurance for that backup because if they're working in your home, they're an employee. If they're working in their home and the parents are paying them, they're probably not an employee and you wouldn't have to worry about workers' comp. Having a backup can reduce stress for everybody so that the parents can continue to work. You've met a great need that they had. You should also be setting policies on parent and staff payments. If you've got to close your business for a day or a week or a month, I was stunned to learn that there's 300 providers in Texas that are closed now. It's been at least a month, hasn't it? Are parents required to pay you if you're closed for a week, day, month? I don't know. Are you going to pay employees during that time? I don't know. Do you have a policy about that? You can set whatever policies you want. Parents are required to pay even if I'm closed. Employees will not get paid if I tell them they can't come to work. But you can do whatever you want. I think having parents pay for a day or two of being closed, I think is reasonable. I'm not so sure having them pay for a month that you're closed is. But these are rules you can set yourself. I wouldn't commit to paying employees in writing because you want to give yourself some flexibility about circumstances. So I wouldn't commit to paying a salary ahead of time. So that's a summary. We're like 1 minute over here. Natural disasters can't be prevented. There are tax rules regarding casualty losses that you could take advantage of to deduct as a business expense some of the items in your home that are damaged. Do not give up if your claim is initially denied or reduced. Remember my example. Keep pushing, keep pushing. Purchase adequate insurance. You need this insurance to protect yourself. Plan ahead. There's a financial impact. You want to assume that it's going to cost you more money for things that you were planning on. Therefore, an emergency fund can make a difference. And of course, we hope for the best for all the folks in Texas, Florida, Puerto Rico, and other states who have been hurt recently by these disasters, and for other states who have had disasters in the past and those that are to come. Again, here's my contact information. I don't charge anything for answering questions. I'm going to look, see if I can answer some of these other questions. Does an S corporation family child care provider follow the same rules? An S corporation is not a substitute for liability insurance. Just because you're a corporation doesn't mean you're going to be shielded from a lawsuit. In general, I don't recommend incorporation, but everything I've said about insurance affects you in the same way. All right. That's what I have. So, Holly, because of the time, I think I'm done.
Thank you, Tom, and I hope that everybody was able to get some good information, some tips, maybe some items that you hadn't really thought about before that'll help you feel more prepared. So we do thank you for your time, and we hope that everybody found this information to be helpful. If you have questions at all, you can email us at preparedness@usa.childcareaware.org, and we will try to answer them. And we hope you're able to participate in some upcoming webinars. Have a good night, everybody.